What's up, listeners? Welcome back to Predator vs. Movies. I'm Alex.
I'm Aidan.
Yeah, no
What?
Peter
My
this
name
week.
doesn't go there.
No, I know. He's too busy. He's got his school. He's gotta get an education. School comes first, kids. But here around these parts, no school. This is a podcast where we discuss and review the latest movie releases. We're going to start off with a non-spoiler review before diving into a deeper discussion of the film. Then we're going to ask the most important question. Would this movie be better if the alien from Predator was in it? This week, we're going to be reviewing the movie How to Blow Up a Pipeline. But before we get into that, we have some news. First up, Jonathan Wick, numero 5. Cinco de Mayo is in early development. What are your thoughts on that, Aidan?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, that was like the proposed plan like years ago, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like I think I've said this on the pod before. It's like I really do feel like this is a franchise they could make like a lot of. I think they could replicate this formula.
Yeah.
And I do think, like, sure, you do risk the point. You do risk a point of no return when death doesn't necessarily mean anything anymore. But I don't entirely care. I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that John Wick can come back to life, or had never died. You know, I don't know how you spin that, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I would be excited for it.
Even watching 4, I was really kind of doubting that he died. It took a while to sink in and be like, oh no, he's actually dead. Because the post-credit scene didn't support his aliveness so much. But I was skeptical because I was like, oh no, he's fine. He was shot like 3 times in a series where he is constantly shot. Like, that should not... What happened to him, I was kind of surprised that did him in. But I'm honestly more interested to see the characters at the end. Donnie Yen's character and...
Oh, yeah.
I forget what her name is, but is it what's the name of the Continental there? Is it the Osaka?
I think so. I think it's... The actor is... Rina Sawayama. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see what happens there. Like, for sure, I think that's where they should pick up. Maybe even let her be the lead of the new franchise, of the new installment, and then kind of like I think it'd be more interesting if we start with her, and then it's like whispers of John Wick still being around, and then she like seeks him out and finds him, and then he kind of like trains her, you know?
That can be fun. I don't know. I think I would still want him to be the lead of it, though. But I like that being, like, the road into the story.
He can show up fairly early, I think. But I still think that, like, yeah. The only issue is you're going to get some repetitiveness from 4 if it's the same 3 characters, you know? If it's Wick and Donnie Yen again, you know? That would be my concern.
I don't think that's true. I think you can be inventive with it.
Okay. Well, we'll find out, I guess. We also Cannes, the film festival in the French little town of Cannes,
In the French place, yeah.
Yeah, has been dans le petit ville de Cannes. The film festival has been happening, and some reactions from some movies have been coming out. So lots of good reactions. People have been
lots of stuff to be excited for.
Absolutely. People have been saying good stuff about Scorsese's new film, Killers of the Flower Moon. The Palme d'Or is Cannes, and I think that was given to a movie called Anatomy of a Fall, which sounds very interesting. There's lots of buzz about a movie called, I think it's the Zone of... Is it the Zone of Interest or the Field of Interest?
Yeah, I think it is the Zone of Interest, yeah.
I'm going to double check that.
We're poorly researched here. Asteroid City also is one that got a lot of good buzz, and that's exciting.
Yes. It is in fact called the Zone of Interest. Across the Spider-Verse has got good buzz. So lots of very positive reactions and lots of movies I'm very excited to see. Now, conversely, there's there's been some rather negative reactions. Uh, Before we get into the main event, people have seen Indiana Jones 5 and the Dial of Destiny. I don't think the 5 is in the title properly, but um,
Oh,
that'd be
really?
kind of funny. Indiana Jones 5 and the Dial of
Yeah.
Destiny doesn't
Are
quite
any of the
roll
other
off
ones
the
like that? I
tongue.
don't think they are they?
No, they don't have the numbers in them.
Yeah.
It's just the colons. But people have seen this one, and I guess Disney thought they had a good movie on their hands, and then it subsequently shat the bed because
Yeah.
people hate it, which is I think is really funny.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I kind of like from the first trailer I was like this does not look like this looks off to me. And I remember it is strange though cuz I remember seeing a reaction that like Spielberg had seen it and said, "Wow, I thought I was the only guy who knew how to make one of these." But I've increasingly in the last year I've increasingly become very wary of such marketing tactics where
yes,
you get
I
like
agree.
respected guy to like something. And because I think like the Flash is like the clearest example of that. Like, there's no way
Exactly.
that movie's gonna be good. Um, so yeah, I actually I'm not very surprised by this.
And I'm pretty sure Spielberg is probably like an executive producer on that movie, so he is like a reason to lie. Like,
Mm.
he would, of course he would be like, yeah, this is so good. My name is on it. Um, I, I mean, I like James Mangold, and I think he's the director, and I think
Yeah,
he's made some, good films, even in like franchises. So like he did Logan, and that was
yeah,
fantastic. So um, I do just think this is probably probably a lot of it is script at the script level, and it from what I've heard, it sounds like very Force Awakens era Lucasfilm. Like it's all of the reminding you why you love it, but without any of the kind of like the characteristics that actually like people liked about it. It's been kind of sanded down to a Disney uh, kind of appropriate version of what the classic franchise was, and yeah,
yeah.
all
Sure.
the
I
stuff
mean,
I've heard.
like, I will say like I feel like it's probably not all script because I mean it's just the trailer, but like the clips I've seen from it, like they just truly like they just don't have the same kind of like kinetic action directing. I mean, like
Hmm.
you're going against Spielberg, so like
Yeah,
obviously
that
like
is
like
also
that's
yeah.
so it's hard, but like there's even been one clip that's been going around on Twitter from Indiana Jones 4, which is a movie I don't like that much for a few different reasons. But it's just like the introduction of Indy in that movie where it starts with this silhouette on the car and it's like, oh, we get like the sting of music and it's like, oh, he's this noble adventurous character that we know, but then we see a bunch of soldiers run around and they swivel the camera around with us and it's like, wait, something's wrong here, and then we see an older tired looking concerned Indy, and it's like that's great directing, like how one
Yeah.
shot just tells that story like that quickly, like 5 seconds in we have such a good sense of where we're at just using visuals and a bit of musical score. And yeah, so like that's what you're going up against, and that's not even like one of the best Indiana Jones movies. Um, so yeah, I just can't imagine liking this that much.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're absolutely right that when you're trying to add on to like the legacy Spielberg built, you're just gonna fall short, kind of. But
Yeah,
we last bit of Cannes reaction is probably the most interesting to us. A little television series by one Sam. Is it Levison? There's
Levinson, I think.
Levinson. I was gonna say. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure there's a second N in there. By Sam Levinson, the creator of Euphoria,
Euphoria.
and I think he did Malcolm and Marie and
Yeah,
stuff like that. His new series with The Weeknd, The Idol, premiered, and he got some amount of standing ovation, and I think he shed some tears while there.
yeah,
But it's very very bad. Apparently, it's terrible. In fact, I think it's
yeah,
it beat a record or something. Like it's the lowest rated thing on maybe Metacritic or something. Like it's abysmal. It's really
yeah.
bad.
Yeah, it's like I think it's like one of the lowest rated HBO shows ever made, if not the lowest,
Yes.
right off
Yeah,
the bat.
it is.
And so that's awesome, good for them. But that I mean,
Shoot for
I
the
like,
stars.
yeah, and so but I mean everything I've heard from this like has made me be like this is gonna be stupid. Like from the one hand, like every time the show gets criticized, they just respond saying something like, "It
Oh
looks
my
like we're
god, yeah.
making the people upset. Maybe you just can't handle our show. Oh, what?
Yeah.
You've never seen a sex before?" Like
Yeah.
it's like a
Yeah.
high school like clique, like bully clique, like trying to convince you to like, "Hey loser, watch our show, idiot. More you
Is
fucking dork."
they think that like by being edgy and like doing, you know, sexy things with and like revealing lots of, you know, women's bodies that they're being edgy and it's like or like that they're being altruistic or you know pushing the envelope and it's like no
Yeah.
you're literally just being edgy for edgy's sake and you're not saying anything despite the fact that you might think you are.
We're
um,
assuming we haven't seen the show, but it
that
does
is
seem
true.
like that's the like
We are
that's the
just
case.
basing our reactions on trailers, what we've heard, and critics' reactions. I feel
Yeah.
pretty safe though, knowing about this
So do
guy's
I.
reputation, that I'm not going to watch it because it sounds like disturbing and gross as a television
Yeah,
series.
and it sounds like it is not substantive at all. Like all I will
No.
say, I will admit this that like I've never seen a Sam Levinson production, but I think that like everything I've seen from him feels like it is generally empty, meaningless aesthetics and over directing, and like that's just the impression I get. Like where it's just like like an inability to just like put a camera down and construct a scene and make something like really tangible and great. Um, and yeah, I don't like that. That's just the impression I get from like clips and whatever. And because I've seen like bits and pieces of Euphoria, like never a full episode. Um, but yeah, that's my take on it. So
Yeah. And what I do know is behind the scenes, there was originally, I can't recall if it was a director or if it was a writer. I feel like it was a director, though, who was working with Tesfaye with The Weeknd on
oh
creating
yeah,
the project. And
it was the
like, she was,
director
she
of
was,
yeah. Have you seen the
she
movie
was,
She Dies Tomorrow?
no. Oh,
She
I might
directed
have
that.
heard of it, though. So she was heavily involved in the project, maybe even like a co-creator. I'm not for sure. Maybe Aidan can fact check me on this. But
Yeah, I
um,
think she was originally involved in it. Yeah.
but Tesfaye actually fired her because he felt the male perspective wasn't being served enough, that it wasn't being centered on the male perspective. Of course, he's playing, I think, the lead character in the show, and
Yeah.
so he decided he thought there was too much of the female perspective, which is just frankly an absurd thing to say in the year 2023 after
The Year of the
the
Lord. Yeah.
changes Hollywood has gone through in the past decade. That's crazy to be like there's too much woman in this. The show is too feminine. We need to get rid of these women. Like
Yeah.
that's terrible.
Yeah.
Did you find anything for us, Aiden?
Yeah, so she originally was set to direct all of the episodes,
There
and
it is, yeah.
has and left the project. Yeah, and I did remember seeing the same report that it was The Weeknd saying that she wasn't she wasn't centering on the male perspective enough.
That's crazy.
I don't know. I mean, like, there's a certain amount, like we should add in. There's a certain amount of like reports like that are like sensational and like to be circulated. So like
True.
it's true, like it's the kind of thing that like you see and it just goes around, but would not be surprised based off what other things we've seen in the show. So yeah.
Yeah, like, and when you combine that with the reactions to negative feedback they've gotten, it
Yeah.
adds up.
Yeah.
The edginess, the kind of like inability to receive criticism and respond in a mature way, the
Yeah.
hiring of Sam Levinson, like it's all very, it's a pattern. But that's enough talk about something we're not going to watch. How about some things that we probably will be watching? Wow, look at
Yeah.
the segue. Speaking of segues, let's hop into the trailer park.
Vroom, vroom, vroom.
That's the sound of my Segway motoring off into the trailer park.
That was a loud
souped
segue.
I've souped up my Segway. I've tricked it out. First of all, we have the trailer. We finally got the trailer for I Think You Should Leave. And it is, in fact, coming out for us in 2 days. It's so soon. I'm very excited.
I'm very excited for that too. Yeah, I mean, like I just watched this trailer moments before we recorded the podcast, but
Mere moments.
because I knew I was gonna watch it anyway. But yeah, like if you just get Tim Robinson just like playing a character that feels the need to over explain himself, like that's just a recipe for success for me.
And I'm super excited about both returning cast. So they got it's Patty Lupone, I think.
Oh yeah.
I really like her, like the Charlie Brown sketch about getting trapped under the balloon. So she's coming back, and I thought there was someone else, but they have also coming. Tim Robinson is coming, and Ayo Edebiri is coming. There's some good guest stars this season.
It's Jason Schwartzman.
Schwartzman is lots, and I was like they're doing the cast list. I was like, whoa, we got some good guest stars. So very excited for that. How quickly do you think you're gonna go through that show?
Once I get to it, I'll probably like knock it all down. I don't know if I can watch it in the next little bit, but once I'm at a point where I can, I'll probably consume that very quickly.
Yeah. We also got a new trailer for Mattel's Barbie. This is, I think, the second kind of full trailer. And it definitely reveals a lot more of what the plot is, which is... I realized at some point that I was kind of maybe lacking in information about what the Barbie movie was going to be. And it did really feel like we were only seeing stuff from like the first 20 minutes, which is a common trailer tactic and a safe trailer tactic. And I think that's perfectly fine, especially if you're going to do 2 trailers ultimately. It's kind of nice to space out how much you're revealing. But I think this did a lot for me in my excitement. I was definitely... I had a momentary concern about, what if Barbie was bad? What if... and there's still a chance the Barbie movie is bad. But I think this trailer kind of assuaged my concerns a bit. How about you?
I actually don't like this trailer very much. Like, okay. I still am actually pretty confident that I'm going to like the movie and that I think it's going to be good. But the thing that... I think it's just the way this trailer like sets it up, thing where it's like, if you hate Barbie, you're going to love this movie. Like that's like
text,
that's what like title cards that come up. And yeah, I mean like I think it's great that you have a really great director who is like who's tackling the idea of what if Barbie came to the real world, because she's going to be able to tease out very interesting ideas from that, whereas like a lot of like you could probably make a very similar movie with a director who just isn't interested in that and would just make like a pretty straight fish out of water comedy, I suppose. So like I'm still excited regardless, but yeah, I think this trailer, I don't like this trailer.
Okay, fair enough. There's a couple things that I really do like about it, like the fact that when she's in the real world, this is the first time we're seeing the real world. I think besides maybe one shot of Will Ferrell in the first trailer, but that like she kind of loses her shine, like it's filmed differently, so that like it's maybe desaturated, and of course they were filming on sets in Barbie Land, and so she kind of like, I saw someone's interpretation is that it's going to be like the transition to womanhood and kind of like losing your childhood innocence and kind of like learning the realities of the world for women specifically, and I think that's a really interesting idea. I like that like Ken just seems to be like both a himbo but also maybe a bit of a misogynist, and that they're just gonna kind of like play with that. The bit with the doctor is kind of funny.
Yeah, that's very
Um,
interesting. That's interesting that the moment he would come to the real world, he would just immediately attach himself to like the
Learn
power sources that exist
misogyny.
there. Yeah.
um, and yeah, the stuff about like how she when she decides to go into the real world, like she has flat feet, which I had heard about, but this is the first time the trailer reveals it. I think that's really fun. And then the Matrix option of the high heeled shoe or the Birkenstock
Yeah.
is just that's hilarious. That's so funny to me. So yeah, I'm very excited. Are you gonna watch Oppenheimer first or Barbie first?
I don't
That's
know. I don't know. I've been thinking about like, do you want like, I guess it's like, do you want more serious or more fun first? Like,
I like this kind of like stoner energy you brought to that question. You're like, do you want like, do you want more like serious or do you like want more fun, dude? Like that's what it comes down to.
yeah, I think like, I don't know.
I'm
I don't know.
kind of in the camp of maybe doing Oppenheimer and then Barbie as a chaser kind of thing. I
Sure.
just like I'm more excited to see Barbie, I think. And I just feel like ending on Oppenheimer is going to be strange, you know?
Yeah.
It's weird to
Sure.
watch
Yeah.
the more
I think
fun
that's a good
movie
idea
first
to watch the one you're more excited for second. And so, yeah, I think I will watch Barbie second, actually. Yeah.
to like greater expectations kind of thing.
Yeah. But I will
Um
say, I think I will make sure to like eat in between them or something, so I have a little bit of time to
yeah.
digest in more than one way.
Oh,
Yeah. I will
nice. I see what you did
digest as
there.
I'm ingesting. Yeah.
Mmm. Lots of gestation going
A lot of
on. Great.
ingesting. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not jesting about that. No.
Yeah.
Um,
Nice.
there's one last trailer we're going to talk about. A film from Julio Torres,
Yeah.
who's a comedian and I think a filmmaker as well.
Yeah.
And it's called
He made a show
Probabilista.
called. He made a show that I watched called Los Spookies, which was like really
Yes, I
fucking
heard.
funny. And he was like his character in it is so funny.
I haven't seen that. What is it about? I haven't seen it yet.
It's about like a group in Mexico who like put on like ghost shows. Like they'll like set up like supernatural, like people will hire them to, for example, like make it seem like a house is haunted or something like
It's like a
that.
prank show, right? Pranks, but
No,
like I think I might.
but like
No.
they're not pranks. Like they're trying to like most of the things they're hired for are trying to convince someone that a ghost is real or something like that, or that like there's that, or that there is a
Yeah.
there's one episode where they have to like they have to convince a group of tourists that there's like a sea monster in the thing, and so yeah, like
Nice.
and that's what they do. They just like put on ghost productions.
Cool. Okay. No, I'm
Yeah.
excited. But the trailer stars just the trailer, the movie as well. Stars Julio and Tilda Swinton, and it follows him as he's an immigrant to the U.S. and he has to get like a sponsor, and he works for this like just terrible person played by Tilda,
Yeah.
and he's hoping that she will eventually sponsor his immigration to the U.S. And it's the way I was thinking about it while I was watching the trailer was like this is what I wanted Beau is Afraid to be.
Mm.
Like it seems
Yeah.
like they're taking the level of visual inventiveness of that movie and going one up more than that. And
And
I
having substance.
maybe maybe this is just based on the trailer. And I mean
Yeah.
I saw the trailer for Beau is Afraid and I was excited and then ultimately let down. So I am skeptical. I will say that. But what can I say? I was wowed by the trailer. This was a movie I had seen like behind the scenes photos of, and I was like, I don't know, Tilda Swinton in a weird wig, whatever. But the trailer really, really did sell me on this. I'm quite anticipating this. What do you think about it, Aiden?
Yeah, I think it looks great. I think, like you said, visually inventive, and yeah, I like having seen the show, like having seen Los Spookies. I think that's definitely another exciting aspect for me. Yeah, I think that like I kind of agree with you that it seems to have like the same vibe as Beau is Afraid, but I do think that like even just based off like the premise, there seems to be a lot more that you can tease out ideas from. I think I'm using that phrase a lot today. Did I say that same thing about Barbie?
I don't think so. I'll keep track
Oh,
now
okay.
though.
But yeah, I think that there's a lot here, and it seems like they're trying to play with a lot of big ideas in a grounded way, while also being kind of visually out there. So that sounds
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, and I think you're onto something, that maybe that's the difference between that and Beau's Afraid, is that Beau's Afraid didn't seem to display maybe too many ideas in the trailer. Like
Yeah,
it was kind of one note perhaps, and this I can already see a couple of ideas being teased out perhaps.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. You can watch the
anyways,
trailer and see a few directions this might go in. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm quite excited for that. But we did watch a movie. Aiden, can you tell us a little bit about said movie?
So we watched a movie known as How to Blow Up a Pipeline. It was directed by Daniel Goldhaber and written by Ariella Bearer, Jordan Scholl, and Daniel Goldhaber himself. It stars Ariella Bearer, Christine Froseth, Lucas Gage, Forrest Goodluck, Sasha Lane, Jamie Lawson, Marcus Scribner, Jake Weary, and Irene Bedard. The DOP was Tahila DeCastro. It was edited by Daniel Garber and music by Gavin Brivik. We got a runtime of a cool hour 44 and a current box office of $856,530. That's a specific number.
Well, it's not that much, so they're counting to the last dime. Um,
Yeah.
it's funny. It reminds me of the reveal of the box office of Beau's Afraid. I'll see if I can find it, because that was really funny to me. I'll find it
Yeah. Well, what was the
'cause
budget? What
the
was the
yeah.
pipeline budget?
Oh, it Wikipedia didn't have it. So the budget of Beau's Afraid, though, I do have. It was 35 million, and its box office
Yeah.
was 10.7 million. So not even close to what it should have. What one would hope it would amount to.
Yeah.
Probably because it was 3 hours and people didn't care for it quite enough to make people want to watch that. But
Yeah.
I really liked, someone reacted on Twitter with a short clip from Superbad, and it was what is his name? Not Seth Rogen. Jonah Hill. It was Jonah Hill
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
counting the money they've collected, and he's like,
Yeah.
"What is this? This is $7. It's nothing." And so that's what I feel like the How to Blow Up a Pipeline box office is like. It's just $7. But yeah, so thank you for delivering the movie information. We have a game that we
Yeah, I'm
play.
trying. Sorry, I was just trying to look at the budget really quick, and I don't know. It must be like watching the movie. You can tell it's small, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it could not possibly have been that much. I tend to find that if it's not on Wikipedia, I'm not going to find it, so I don't bother. So we have a game. It's called Predacritic. There's a website on the internet called Metacritic where critics' scores of a movie are tabulated. Out of 100, if it gets 60 or above, it's green. If it's 80 or above, it's must see. If it's 60 to like 45 or something, it's yellow. And if it's below that, it's red. We are going to guess where How to Blow Up a Pipeline land in that metric. I am going first. I spun the wheel and it landed on me.
Nice.
I'm going to guess. Okay, I think this is quite a good movie. I think it's gonna land solidly in the 80s. I'm gonna go with 81.
I promise I'm not just playing the game here, but I am torn between. I think this might be in the 70s, just off of like. I think there are some critics that won't like this quite as much, and so I will go 80 because I do. I'm not just
Did
playing
you
the
not
game.
play
I
the
was going
game?
to guess low 80s, and I just yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I have in fact looked it up, and you did in fact guess towards the correct answer. You do win this round. It received a 77.
Okay.
I think that's fair. Honestly, it's I. Well, we'll get into it, I suppose. But yeah. So now that we have the scores guessed, Aiden, seeing as you were the winner, you do get to deliver your non-spoiler reaction. What did you think of How to Blow Up a Pipeline?
I liked it a lot. I watched this movie last night. I very much enjoyed it. I like how it's a very like tender look at these characters who are doing a very extreme thing. I think it's very timely and topical. I think it encapsulates a lot of the fears and worries of particularly young people of the time. I think it does a good job of showing how a diverse array of people would come by circumstances, and I don't just mean diverse in terms of like obvious identity markers, but just like in terms of circumstances as well. um, yeah, I think that I love the cinematography of this. I think the grainy feel is perfect. Like that's exactly what you want. I love like that there's a mix of like hard naturalism, as you know, like they're in these real expansive places. But then there's also like some pretty like there's a clear amount of attention put on the movement of the camera and exactly what the camera is doing, and not that you can't do that in naturalism, but like there's a certain brand of naturalism in which you've just put the camera down and you're just watching this thing play out, and this movie's not doing that, and I think that's interesting. Not that it's bad to do that. I like the deep focus. So yeah, there's a lot of things to really like about the cinematography here. I will say that I think that this movie could perhaps go into some of its core ideas a little bit more. I think that some of the characters come out of this slightly underdeveloped, I think. And I think that there's a little bit more you could do. I think some of the dialogue is a little on the nose. And I think that there's some on the nosiness in general here. Um, but yeah, I think this is a really good movie that I think maybe I just wanted a little bit more from.
I'm basically going to repeat what you said. I am very much on the same page. I think first of all, what is
The
your
osmosis happens even when
recommendation?
we're not even even when
Yeah,
we're not even there together. The
yeah,
osmosis.
yeah.
Um,
With recommendation and star rating.
I recommend. I give this 4 stars. I think that this is a solid 4-star movie for me, and I would recommend this. I think I would recommend this just about anyone. I think that this is in a lot of ways a very artsy movie, but I don't think it's. I don't think it's the kind of movie that would repel a general audience member necessarily either. So, yeah.
Yeah, I actually really agree on that second point. In that, um, I think general audiences are sometimes afraid of kind of artier films, or maybe we don't give general audiences as much credit as they deserve.
But
Although I
yeah,
think
but
the
they
box
tend to not
office,
go to them. Like you see
yeah,
that,
the
right?
box
Yeah,
office of this movie speaks louder than words. Like,
yeah,
um, and I think this is one that anyone could sit down and watch and like enjoy themselves. Frankly, like I don't think you have to be a super cinephile to like appreciate this.
yeah. And I will say, sorry to jump in, but I think this movie works as just like a tense thriller, even if you don't even want to
Yeah,
consider the ideas in it.
yeah. That is the thing, is that it's always going to be just the fact that they kept the title of the book. It's going to be kind of pushing the envelope of like what people are comfortable with. So I know a lot of
Yeah,
people hear that title and they think they're being radical just for watching it, and a
yeah,
lot of people are. It's just going to alienate a lot of audiences, like a large portion. There's the people who don't believe in what is going on in the movie. They're never going to see it. There's older generations who may be, you know, liberal. I just frankly don't think are going to watch it either. Like you kind of have
yeah,
to be toward further left than liberal to want to see this. I think maybe liberal. I don't know, but like I just
yeah.
I think this movie is just politically kind of divisive. So, but I will tell you what I think. Um, I watched this for the first time about a month ago, and I did rewatch it on Friday, so like 2 days ago. And I think the first time I really just let it wash over me, and I was really wowed by how it was just like a really good thriller that made me feel quite anxious.
Yeah.
And I was quite impressed by the fact that it did that, where I felt a lot of the times movies don't make me feel anything. So I was quite impressed by that, and the cinematography is great, like you were saying. Really did love the grainy feel. I imagine it was shot on film just based on what it looks
Yeah,
like.
I think it's 16 millimeter film is what I saw. Yeah.
Just gorgeous. It looks so
Yeah.
nice. And the direction is quite strong. There's a couple of shots that are like seared into my brain. They're so beautiful. But it is where the script is where it's weakest. And I kind of I think I was honestly like avoiding the flaws the first time and just kind of like accepting the movie for what it was. But on a second rewatch, only a month later, it's hard to avoid that. I think when you know what is happening, what is going to happen, the thriller doesn't kind of do as much because it's not tense. You know what's going to happen. So I was focusing more on the writing of it, and it's not as strong as it could be. I do think that the themes are perhaps not as explored as they could have been. I think a lot of it is explored in dialogue and in conversation, and maybe not as visually, or like even like it can
Or
still
even
be
just like,
explored in different conversation instead of
yeah,
people kind of hi, is it hypothesizing, whatever the word is, like
yeah,
theorizing, and you know
people sitting around and just talking. Like there is one particular scene where we'll get into it, where a character, they're just sitting around talking, and one of the characters says like, "We should acknowledge this," and it's like,
yeah,
okay,
that's not an interesting way to discuss
yeah,
the theme. And I think the issue is that everyone in the making of the movie so strongly believes in what's going on that maybe they're afraid to show the counter argument, or maybe not even that, but just like
I don't think
it
that's the
didn't.
problem. I think,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
almost too streamlined, and I appreciate it for how streamlined it is. It's a short film, well, not that short. It's over 90, but I was impressed by how quickly we just get into the action of it, and it's kind of economical storytelling. But I think it also is something that probably deserved more exploration than the
hmm
film allowed for. I also think that it's just the events of the film are just a little bit too easy, and maybe a little bit is too generous. I think problems come up a bunch, which is great, but they are immediately solved, which is less great. Um, what else? Uh, Not to like ruin the ending, but like things just go a little too well. Uh, and there's arguments to make that maybe that's a good idea, but I I was hoping for maybe a little more twistiness than what we got. Um, and yeah, the dialogue isn't exactly stellar. It is a bit on the nose. Uh, Trying to think what else I did mention, but yeah, I think the score is really good, and I think it's edited quite well as well. So there's the technical side of it I do really like. It's just kind of the script is maybe the weak point, and I think there's rooms that this movie could have grown and could have been a little bit better. So um, originally I gave it a 4.5. I might have to drop it down to a 4, but I did really enjoy this movie still. I think it's great. Now that we've done our non-spoiler reactions, we have a spoiler warning.
pew 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 wee, wee, wee. Yep.
A little bit of both. A little bit of spoiler siren, a little bit of spoiler alarm. And because I lost the Predacritic, I'm going to give the synopsis. And I have 2 minutes to do so. So, yeah, here we go. Let me just get my timer out. Okay. 2 minutes. Starts 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so film opens, and basically it's a group of like 8 or so individuals, and they're going to blow up a pipeline. One of them, her mom just died, and she died because of an oil refinery that was near their home. No, it was a heat stroke. She died of a heat stroke or something that was
Yeah.
caused by global warming. Her, I think, friend or
Yeah. Friend
potentially
Thea.
friend, yeah, okay. Theo is who also grew up in the same area, has a leukemia because of growing up near the refinery. Um, uh, the first person's name is Sochi. Her friend from college is radicalized by her post her mom's death, and so they do the thing. Theo's girlfriend is brought along. There's a guy who is on Boom TikTok called Boom Talk from North Dakota who comes along. There's a farmer whose land was taken to build the pipeline who is radicalized by these guys. I'm trying to think if I'm missing any. Oh, and there's two people who are part of a like who do kind of like radical stuff already, who are into property damage, who join them, and they're all building a bomb to blow up a pipeline. They found a good spot to do it. They're building it. We reveal their backstory through cutaways. They discuss whether it's a good idea, whether or not to do it, but they do it anyways. And eventually we find out that maybe one of the people who is... It's Logan and Rowan who are the people who already have been doing this kind of action. Rowan, it turns out, is working with the FBI or something to do this, and it turns out, psych, she's actually a good person and has been lying to the FBI, and they actually do blow up the pipeline, and everybody wins. Yay. Okay.
Nice.
That's more or less.
Except Sochi does go to prison.
Yes. Sochi and Theo go to prison.
Well, Theo dies, likely.
But she is arrested. Theo is arrested.
Theo is arrested, but the last thing we see
die.
of her is that she's in the hospital and that she's
Handcuffed.
likely going to die. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess just some of the other character endings I might have missed. Everyone pretty well gets off scot-free. I think Sean, who is Sochi's friend, is going to be under investigation. It's implied, and so he's probably fucked. But Logan. Was I missing anyone? No, I think everyone else is fine and they go home. Logan gets shot in the arm. That's also a thing that happens because one of the twisty turns happens. But I think we'll kind of bring that up as we discuss. All right, so let's get into our spoiler discussion, full discussion of the film. So first of all, I'm going to ask our classic question: what was your favorite part?
That is a good question. It's funny how we have this question every week, but I never have an answer ready.
You're always surprised. You're like, what was my favorite part?
What was my favorite part? That is a good question. Do you have one off the top of your head?
Yeah, I can filibuster with some of mine. I guess it's not really filibustering if I'm giving my honest answer, but so I watched this one with my brother for the rewatch, and there was one moment that we had kind of a laugh at, which was after the guy, what's his name? Dwayne. After Dwayne, who is the farmer, the rancher who's lost his land, after he's kind of done with the job, they've set up the bombs, but he needs to have his alibi straight, so he goes to a bar, and he walks up to the bar, sits down, and he looks at his watch, quite showy, and he's like, it's 2:00. Can you put on the game? And my brother and I both go, he's noting the time. And we said it like in unison. Great moment. I think most of my favorite moments are Dwayne related. He was kind of like, despite him being like probably the most different person from me possible, I just kind of like he just is, I found him quite interesting. So there's that when he has to like lasso the drone with
that's fine,
the ratchet straps. I found that pretty awesome. And when he has to like rip his shirt and he's got a crop top for about 10 minutes. It's for the broken leg, and he's like ripped his shirt and it's a crop top. So those are all my favorite parts. All Dwayne related.
Yeah, I think a lot of my favorite parts are, again, like some of the more like tender moments that are like wordless, but either between characters or because of it. Like I like when Alicia has just dropped off Theo to get arrested, to blow up the house and get arrested, essentially. I like that, like, there's a scene of like her just trying not to cry as she's driving away, and I think the performance is really, really strong. And I think like that's like, again, they had like dealing with like how dire the situation is, how desperate these characters are, how that intertwines with the love some of them have for each other, and like the general feeling of loss that like permeates the movie. Like all these characters are losing something or have lost something, and that ties into the greater grief that they feel about losing the planet and just losing everything. And I think like there are some really great moments that like just through performance and like good shot choice and like a good score like really convey that. So that's one of them. Also between Alicia and Theo, I really liked Alicia and Theo's relationship. I thought that was an interesting thing that I felt was under. Although I will say I actually thought that Alicia was one of the underdeveloped characters, but I like the idea of that. I think the relationship, that's a good conflict there that maybe isn't teased out enough. But yeah, I like when they're like lying together the night before that they're about to do the pipeline, and they're just kind of like there's a great shot where like Theo kind of tucks her head into Alicia's like neck, and like it's just a very well framed, like very humanistic kind of shot. So there's a lot of that I really like. I think that Michael is really great. The actor that plays Michael, Forrest Goodluck, I think he's great. I think he's a really interesting character.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's just like broader. I don't know if I have specific parts that are like. I like how tense it is whenever they're attaching the barrel bombs, to the pipeline. Like I like how that feels. They've done a very good job at that point of setting up how even the smallest things can could wind up with like huge explosions. Like we literally saw that happen, and even these small things could go wrong. So now when they're actually lowering the bomb, it's like it
Yeah.
becomes very tense. So it's a good job of setting that up. Um, yeah, that I gave you. There's a lot of answers
Yeah,
there.
there was a couple options. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll jump off of your point about character relationships. I think that's kind of like those tender moments are kind of where the movie, the underlayer of the movie kind of shines and is
Yeah.
perhaps not as developed as it could have been. And I found that
Yeah.
on rewatch kind of the most disappointing thing is these characters are quite interesting. They've created these really interesting characters, but they're there's just not quite enough about their interactions, and I wish there was more.
Yeah.
One thing I picked up on was some point toward the end. I think it's after Alicia's broken her leg, which is a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Um, there's a moment between Sean and Sochi where they separate, and I was like, oh, like Sean likes Sochi. Like I think he has a crush on Sochi, and I think
Mm.
that's kind of why he's here a little bit. Like there's just kind of like this moment where he's looking at her, and I'm like, we're lingering on his reaction, and there's something there. Like he's I don't know, and so I found
I
that
think
really interesting.
I took that more as like again like she was like his intro into this world, and I think it was almost like I think it was like an appreciation thing. Like I think he like admires her, and I think that
Either
like
yeah,
yeah, but yeah, I agree. Like there's some like the strengths of the movie are in moments like that. Yeah, those some of the biggest strengths. Yeah.
yeah, and like I might be reading it differently than you, and that's fine. But yeah, so I thought that was neat. I actually think you mentioned Alicia, and I think she is maybe one of the more developed characters in that she has a different opinion and is quite vocal about it, and so I
But that's
appreciated
that's
that we
pretty
had
much
one
it.
person. Yeah, that is
That's
true.
like her whole character for the most part, and it's
Yeah,
like that's like and that those are some of my least favorite parts of the movie. It's like again that the moment I was talking about is they're all
yeah.
sitting around and she says, "I think we need to acknowledge that what we're doing is going to hurt a lot of people," and it's like that one they should all have like they've all considered that by this point. Like so, I think that it shouldn't. I think that on a certain level, that's just like the wrong way to broach that idea within the script because like they're not like they don't need to acknowledge that because they probably have acknowledged that before. I don't think that like I just don't buy that all of these characters came here just on a warpath and planned this much and got this far without ever like
I
considering like
I think it's
like I
possible.
I just don't really buy that. Like, I
Well,
believe like some of them, sure, but like,
like if it, I think that a lot of people see climate activism as something that is intended to save people, and that's where most of them are coming from. And
no, I
it's
agree.
the idea that their actions are also going to have negative consequences on ordinary people. They know it's going to have negative consequences on rich people and companies, but the idea that by plummeting stock, it's going to affect the ordinary people they're trying to save is an interesting idea. But I think the issue for me is that the movie doesn't really want to engage with that idea further than that. They bring it up in the argument and they just kind of have it as this one argument scene,
Well,
and no character has to like actually contend with that idea. No one is
yeah,
interacting with the
but okay,
notion
so
that maybe they're harming people.
this is where my thing comes in. So like, my point is that like, that argument is weak in the movie because it's weak in real life. It's just a weak argument. Like, these oil companies like put the ordinary person in these dependent positions and
Hmm.
like and fuck them over all the time. So like, no, it's not the fault of people who are taking action against these companies. The companies like shouldn't be as insidious as they are. So I think it's a weak argument. It just is a weak argument, so I don't think there's much there. My problem is that it feels like it's just like an obligatory thing that they have to bring up. And it's
Yeah.
I just don't I like so okay, so why does Alicia I sure, there's a little bit there where she works in like a food
She
bank.
works.
Uh
Yeah.
she works, she helps, sure. So there is something there, but I don't
I
know.
I know what
I
you mean.
I
This is what I'm saying is that there should be the counter argument. That's what a good movie is. They have what they think is the right option, and they show the ramifications of maybe why it's a bad idea. But I don't think it's an idea they fully contend with or maybe even believe in, because it's like you said, it is kind of like a shaky argument, and they don't really explore it. It's kind of brought up in this one discussion and then not, you know, there's no
see like
elaboration, I suppose.
I would almost prefer I don't necessarily need them to elaborate on that more. It's actually other conflicts that I think are more interesting to delve into. I actually I think it is totally fine that this movie has taken the position of generally what these characters are doing is right. I think that's fine.
Mm.
I don't have any problem with that. I think that there is an opportunity for other really interesting conflicts or at least just yeah, ideas to explore. Like for example, between Dwayne and Michael, like that's a lot of potential for a very interesting sort of discussions there. Michael being an
Yeah.
indigenous guy who like again like has historically like had land stripped away from him and has like his people, his ancestors have been victims of colonization and colonial imposition, and like Dwayne being like a settler person who has no doubt benefited from that, and he mentions that his family has owned this land for centuries. So
Yeah.
his family are like settlers who have benefited from that, and now he's in this position, and so like there are ideas to explore of like now despite all of the conflicts that exist there, like all of these characters now find themselves at the behest of corporations that are ruining the planet, and they've all found themselves in the same position. And so like there's a little bit of that in the movie, and I don't know if I need them to beat me over the head with it. I don't need them to sit down and have a conversation where they explicitly spell that out. But I I think it's strange that the movie actually goes from they're kind of standoffish towards each other at first, and then immediately like they seem to respect each other
Yeah,
like
no,
very
I
quickly.
I completely agree, because I didn't really think about the fact that they should have that kind of maybe ingrained hostility towards one another, because they are like friendly to each other pretty well off the bat. Like Dwayne is giving him rides, and they sleep in the back of Dwayne's truck, like in the bed, and it's weird that like I think those are the maybe the only scenes that they share that are kind of like about their relationship.
Yeah.
And I do agree that like maybe the idea that what they're like the question of whether what they're doing is right or wrong is not the most interesting idea, but I think that's the main idea that the movie is going for, and I think that's maybe the fault of the movie and not, like I think that's what it was going for, and I think maybe it's not the most interesting idea it could have gone for, and
Sure.
that kind of to circle back to that the discussion we were having about the counter argument. So maybe if they had just chosen a different argument to make, and just kind of accepted it as it was, that this is the right action, perhaps. But,
I agree on some level. I think that they're trying to throw the in the movie a little bit, and I think that yeah, there are more interesting questions to ask. But I do think that I see the movie more as like so, and we'll get into this, but one of the reasons I like the ending, and I like the reason that generally speaking they succeed, and sure, Sochi goes to jail, so there are consequences, like she doesn't just get away with it, but like generally speaking, things are it was a very successful operation, and I think the point of this movie is to be something that is like useful for people who are maybe activists themselves. I think the point is to help mobilize people, not necessarily to blow up pipelines, but just the idea of if you want to take action, you can. Like you actually can take radical action. Not necessarily blowing up a pipeline, but I'm just saying like.
but
So,
you
and
could
I
if
think
you wanted to.
you could if you wanted to.
We're not going to, but one might.
Like,
Whatever.
I actually think it would have been really bad if this movie ended with one, if they failed, because then what is the message of this movie is that
Yeah.
the world is ending and we can't do anything about it, and that's not helpful. And I think that this movie also makes a concerted effort in like showing us the little details, and makes an effort in showing how like DIY everything they're doing is, and it's like you could do this too. I do think that that's a big part of this movie, and I think that is a good thing generally. Like showing people like they can mobilize against something, and then maybe you can fold in the conflict there of, well, it's like you can do something, but maybe this isn't the right thing to do. Like I don't know, but yeah. So I don't necessarily need the counter argument too hard there. I just think maybe it needs to be weaved in better, and yeah, I don't know. I think we generally agree though. Like there are just other things there are other conflicts that are more interesting here.
Yeah. I think whatever theme they, if in a hypothetical scenario where they chose a different theme, whatever it was, I think you need to have that counter argument. And just in this movie, I think it's not as strong as it could be. I think is the general issue. I think maybe we share. But to talk about the ending, I do agree that I think it's good that they succeed. I think it's kind of like, well, pretty well exactly what you said. It's like proof that we can make a difference. It's not hopeless. And I think there's a movie by Kelly Reichardt called Night Moves where they don't succeed, and it's disheartening, and and I think maybe a character dies or something, and it's like that's not like good publicity in a like kind of a shallow way to put it.
I think it's not useful. It's not useful for potential like activists or for grassroots organizations.
Yeah, and so like I agree that I think an ending that is happy is a good move. With a caveat, I do think that the movie is perhaps things go too smoothly generally. Now, not to say that there aren't hiccups. There are, and I appreciate that there are obstacles that are thrown in their way that are unexpected that they do have to deal with. But I think the fact that everything goes according to plan is kind of like a weak point for me, because
I agree with
literally everything goes according to plan almost to a T. With I guess Logan getting shot is not kind of planned out, but
yeah, I might agree with that, although I think that you can make it so that they have more shit thrown at them that they have to contend with during the movie, and then still have the ending there, and I think that works. My problem is more just like, so take the drone thing for example. Like they're lowering one of the bombs and a drone shows up. Holy shit, what are we gonna do, right? And so then Dwayne takes it out, and that leads some survey workers to go to the like main, what's it called, the valve switch, like
The Valve, yeah.
that fuck, who are they, what are their names again, the main
Logan
characters?
and Rowan.
There's
I
Logan and Rowan, yeah.
I
That
laughed
Logan
because
and
their names are both 5 letters and they have 3 letters in common and they're all
yeah,
in the same spots.
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, so and like that leads to them and it leads to like some hijinks there. But like they also deal with that like pretty quickly. Like Logan is pretty handily able to lure them away and allow Rowan to go in and do that. And yeah, he gets shot, but him getting shot actually doesn't deter the plan at all. Like
No,
it
no.
doesn't like, and so I do agree that there's a problem of like it just needs to be harder for them to do this. There needs to be more things that actually get in the way of their plan. Another example, Alicia gets her leg broken. That doesn't affect the plan. It actually like
Yeah.
doesn't derail them in any way. She can still drive. And like that's what she needs to do. If she suddenly couldn't drive anymore because of that and they had to
That's
figure something else out, like that's then there's something there.
that's the difference is what should have happened is unexpected obstacles come up, and in order to deal with these obstacles, people need to do things that they weren't otherwise going to do, then suggesting a character arc, right?
Yeah.
These because of unexpected obstacles, characters have to step up in ways that they weren't intending to, leading to ramifications that weren't part of the original plan. So I think, yeah, the consequences that happened, Logan, getting shot, like that doesn't suggest anything new about his character. Like he
Yeah.
probably always would have done that. And Alicia breaking her leg, like what does that mean about her character? What does that mean about other people's character? Like nothing. Nothing changes.
Right.
And I think it would have been more interesting if, you know, something happens so that a character can't do what they were originally planning to do to make it out. Like if a character who wasn't supposed to get arrested gets arrested, like that's
Yeah.
conflict, baby. That's that's a ramification that no one had to die, and I think maybe that's too extreme. But like I think someone getting
I think
arrested who
that is
wasn't
too
originally
extreme.
supposed to is more
I don't
interesting.
I actually don't like that either. I don't want them to get arrested. I like the idea that in the end things did wind up how they planned it. Because again, I think that the main goal of this movie is to be useful, and I think that they need to contend that like that needs to remain true. But I think you can do that while still having the plan go awry in different ways and forcing like you said, forcing characters to step up and therefore explore the corners of themselves that they haven't explored and realize things about themselves and push themselves to their limits and stuff like that.
Well, here's just an example: is like Sochi is the one who gets arrested because she is always intending to get arrested to be like a martyr. But, I think what is a potentially interesting option is a character who wasn't really all that interested or had the wrong motives for being there, then through the movie learning to be like down with the cause for real,
Sure.
and then kind of like accepting that they have to go to jail, and like that's kind of like a positive ending.
And
Like I
stepping up
did
to it, sure.
something, right? Like I think
Yeah.
like what if Rowan decides to betray her people and gets arrested, for example? Like that's an
I think it's
and
more
like
example if like Alicia like went on that
or
arc
Alicia,
or
yes,
something.
yes,
Yeah.
like and just kind of like yes, something like now I'm in this shitty position, but I've learned as a character in a positive way, and I think as long as they don't die, like that's a you can't really like if a character dies, that's obviously not good for the cause, like
Yeah.
in real life, but the fact that Sochi's okay with going to jail means that jail is an option. It's
Yeah.
a consequence that some people are okay with. Um, But yeah, let's. I'm gonna see if I can find anything else I was gonna talk about there. Um, what did you think about the fact that Rowan is teased out as there's the tease word again.
Yeah.
Is teased out as a saboteur, and then they're like, "Psych, they were in on it the whole time."
I think I think the initial I think that the confirmation that she is a saboteur maybe needs to be a little bit earlier, because I think this movie has a problem of twist on twist on twist stacked right up against each other, where it's like she's a saboteur, turns out Logan also is, and it was his plan, but then also they're not saboteurs, they were actually going against the FBI. It's like it's too many things right away, where I actually think the movie does a good job of like you'd have a good feeling that that's what she sorry sorry about that.
Sorry,
you have a feel the movie definitely provides evidence that's what it is when she sends the picture. Like that's obvious, like that's the first place my brain went, is that like she's working with the FBI or something.
Yeah.
And I think like that's a good job, but I actually think you do need to, like, if you're going to pull the twist that she's actually not working with the FBI, then you need to put it more out front that she is earlier.
Yes. No, I agree, because what they've done is they've put the fact that she's a saboteur in the twist section of the movie, when it's not a twist. I know this already. You've told me, basically.
Yeah.
You know, in less words than that, but you know. And I think personally, I found that the twist on the twist was kind of cheap, honestly. Like the fact that the whole time they knew, they were kind of like, I was like,
it does raise some questions, like, because is it not true that doesn't the drone like actually wind up factoring into their plan? And it's like, how did they account? No, it doesn't. Never mind. I'm wrong about that.
No, I don't think the drone factors.
No, I was wrong.
But like the movie they were setting up, that I was seeing for most of it, is that there's these characters who are going to betray the group ultimately, but perhaps they, through building together as a team, which I think is kind of the theme of the movie, or like one of the themes is like this group coming together before ultimately, you know, going their separate ways, unfortunately. But like I thought what was going to happen is she had the intention to betray the group, and then kind of in that classic trope, learn to love this group and then change her ways and decide against it. Like I think the fact that
I would not have liked that.
It's maybe too tropey, but I don't like that
very
they were just the fact that they came clean at the beginning and they knew the whole time, but because like the cell phone thing, her taking a picture with a cell phone, is like a red herring that they don't know, but she knew the whole time, and it just rings kind of false and like again too easy, you know. There's no consequences.
I don't have a problem with,
because the problems aren't real.
I disagree with that. My problem is not the concept itself, because once again, like, say someone wanted to blow up a pipeline, one of the things that they would be thinking of is like, I would get caught by the FBI or something before I would even be able to do it, and this would all go wrong. The powers that be are too strong, and I would never be able to get around them. It's very important that in this movie they do. I think that's an important thing, that they do actually, in fact, thwart the powers that be. However, I think it's just like a plot thing. Like I think that I think that it needs to be. I think that what it needs to be is it needs to play out. It needs to be more present after she sends the photo, because it kind of drops off and we kind of forget about it. And she seems to be too genuine. So it's like, it's just a little odd, and I think it needs to feel like she is. I don't know what the point of the twist is, because it's also a twist that Logan is involved too, because that's not how it's set up. When she sends the picture, she sends it. She's sleeping like on Logan, like they're sleeping on the couch together, and she ducks under a blanket to send the picture, which implies that Logan doesn't know. And that she's hiding it from Logan as well. And so what's the point of having the twist that he is in on. Like, I don't know, I just don't get. I think it's packing in a little bit too much there. Whereas if you just focus on these are the betrayers, but then they're not, I think that you just make that stronger, and I think that's fine.
Okay, like that's what I mean about these red herrings is they set up a movie that is like they're showing events that don't make sense with later context. Because why is she hiding stuff that supposedly everyone who needs to know knows already? Alicia, the person who is constantly saying we shouldn't do this, is in the know. I think, right? Isn't that
Yeah.
scene is from so she knows, Theo probably knows, Sochi knows, Logan knows. Who's she hiding any of that from?
Well, okay, I
Maybe the
will
other
say
three guys.
I actually think this scene. No, I don't think you're hiding it from anyone. I think they all know. But I think that I think no, I don't think that that's I don't necessarily have a problem with that because I think that like she it's this kind of thing where it's like the way we see it, it seems like she's hiding it from them. I think she's just not hiding it from them at all. Like I think that's just not, and I actually think there's a reasonable explanation. Like when she goes to the bathroom, she goes to go pee, and that's when she takes the picture. Well, like literally, it could like what it actually is she legitimately just had to go pee, saw them doing that, and said, "Oh, this will be a convincing picture because I'm behind the bushes and everything," and so sure. And then later, when she sends the picture, it's like she just is lying that she just is under the blanket. I said that she goes under the blanket, but that's actually not how this scene plays out. She just is under it, and then she comes up, and it's like, yeah, she was just there.
Sure,
Like
yeah,
that's just
okay.
how she was sleeping. Like to me, it's not that incongruous with what winds up happening. My problem is just I think that that angle drops out of the movie and then suddenly comes back and it takes a bunch of turns very suddenly.
I think the other issue I have is that, again, the fact that they were going to, like, that they knew that they were betraying the group which also means that they never were betraying the group, is another way of erasing the potential of a character arc. Because I feel like nobody has a character arc if the plan goes as intended, and, you know, very little is revealed about any character. You know, I just don't think the characters have arcs because they land where they were expecting to, and they don't have to change to get there. If anything, maybe Alicia changes because she was not wanting to do this, but she's like involved the whole movie, and she is only just more involved, more resolute, I guess, after breaking her leg. So I think she has the most distance to go. But like, if you were gonna betray the group to the FBI, but they knew the whole time, you've just removed the character of an arc because they don't have to learn
No, you
anything.
can build it. No, you can build an arc in there. You don't have to like
Maybe.
yeah. I don't know. We're kind of it's just kind of a circular argument at
Yeah,
this point.
yeah, we can
But
move on from that. But yeah, what else? I think just generally as well, like kind of moving away from that, is that I might have said this already, but the problems that are thrown in their way are solved too quickly. So,
yeah.
aside from twists, like the drone shows up, let's lasso it down. I'm okay with that one being kind of fast because that displays Dwayne's natural skills, and I think that kind of makes sense to me. But like the ones where like Sean is like, let's braid the thing.
Sure.
Like he comes up with that so quickly, and same with the detonator cap breaking at the very end for Sochi and Theo's final bomb,
Yeah.
and then being like, quick, let's use a candle. I was like, we're not even gonna even take a second to think of like
Yeah,
being stuck.
it is. It's a thing of the first thing they try works all the time, and
Yes.
like that is
Yes.
like that. That's not great. Um,
I
yeah,
will say-
and I think like and talking about the drone thing really quick. Like again, it's like the thing I said. Like it's actually fine that they do that because the idea of the drone is that spirals into a new thing, which
Yes.
it does. But then
That
the
one
new
really
thing
works for
doesn't
me.
matter. But then the new thing doesn't wind up mattering because it also doesn't really get in their way. They deal with that very
Right.
quickly, and so it's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
So I think the drone is the closest they get to a new obstacle that has unintended consequences. Good thing. Like when characters' actions have consequences, that is like good storytelling. So the fact that
Yeah.
drone appears, wrench in the plan. They do the thing, further consequences. Now Logan has to go. The fact that he has to go, that should have consequences. And I guess it's supposed to be that he's shot. But
but that's
that
not really
doesn't-
a consequence.
That's not. He's fine.
It does.
He's
It
shot
doesn't
in the
affect
arm.
the story. Yeah.
It doesn't affect the story. It doesn't affect him long term. It doesn't reveal a new thing about him or Rowan. I just think it kind of stops there, where that could have been more interesting in some way. I don't. Yeah, I don't know what they should have done, but there's just an issue of the writing. I guess another writing issue we had was dialogue, and the fact that it's quite on the nose at times.
Yeah. I mean, it's the thing that I brought it up a couple times already. The way we're going to broach a new idea is a character just brings it up, and they bring it up kind of unnaturally, and then it's kind of swiftly it's just whatever. I do think that sometimes the writing falls into the category of the characters are just mouthpieces for certain ideas, and I think that they stop being characters at certain points. And I think that you can have those ideas expressed even through the exact same characters and just write it a little differently such that they feel more authentic in those moments.
One of the scenes that I really picked up on that, or the one that's just sticking in my brain right now, is the backstory for Theo when she's on the phone and she just says I need these pills to survive, and these cost so much money, and I need these pills to survive. And that, and the scene where they're all arguing and Alicia's saying the counter argument, it is, I think you put it perfectly, is that they're just mouthpieces for an argument that is part of the book. And I think that's maybe just a product of trying to adapt academic writing. I think that the fact that they did that is very interesting, and I think you can totally do that. But I think that they've kind of revealed the danger of doing that, in that you are kind of you have to be careful in developing half-baked characters who are just mouthpieces. You need to fully commit to creating fully fleshed out characters, and trying to be more subtle about translating the themes of the book into the themes of the movie. And I don't think they're quite successful here, but I applaud them for trying, I guess. And I think that's a really neat idea in theory.
Yeah, I agree.
But I guess last thing about writing that I have written down is the narrative structure, and this is more of a positive, so we can start getting into more positive
because
things.
I'm gonna say we have been talking very negatively about this movie. I really liked this movie.
I think it's all positive.
We get into
from
this
here on
habit
out
all
for
the
me.
time where we wind up just picking out the things that don't work so often that it makes it sound like we didn't like the movie. But
so the narrative structure I found really interesting. We get to their hideout, and they start building the bomb very, very quickly, which I did appreciate. Let's not kind of waste any time to get there.
Yeah.
And then they start building out the backstory in flashback, kind of taking either pairs of individuals or just individuals one at a time, and showing how they got here. And I think that's kind of, again, speaking to one of the themes of the movie, is how each of these individuals are affected in different ways, and what kind of inspires them toward action. And I found that so interesting and really captivating, to kind of explore truly how different these individuals are and what brings them to the table, what motivates them. Anything on that, Aidan?
No, I agree. I think this is a great decision. Let's get right into it. I also think that when they choose to cut to different characters, they choose good moments. The cut that I really love, for example, is when the barrel is just about to fall on Alicia's leg, and then it cuts to... Oh, no, it doesn't cut to Alicia at that point. Who does it cut to? Oh, but it cuts out to Theo or something. Right as the barrel is about to hit the ground, it's we cut it. That's great. That's a great moment. And I think that's a good decision as well. And yeah, I will say, speaking on the next point you said as well, I think like, again, my takeaway from this movie is that like, all these characters have either lost something or they're about to, and it's like they're in, and there's no meaning for it. Like it's like life is starting to feel meaningless for all of them, and I think that like that's a very real sort of feeling. Like I think like Sean is like looking at Twitter and it's just like, and it's just like the world is ending and there's all of that stuff. That's also a little bit of an on the nose moment, I think, but
Mm-hmm.
still like I think like, and if like nothing means anything, like their family members are dying and it's just happening, and there's no explanation for it, then like you, it makes perfect sense why you'd be so attached to like striking out against the one thing that is like that is destroying, like destroying your life, and to try to let, and it's like it is such a desperate last ditch attempt that feels so personal to all of them. Like they absolutely need to stop this from happening. They need to do something, and I think that that is like that is teased out so well. Like this feeling of grief over the world and how it ties to the personal grief of loss within your life, and like the destruction of your family unit as it ties to the destruction of the greater like community of humans. And yeah, I think I really like that as well. In short.
Yeah. I think also that like it's interesting that these characters, like you said, are all dealing with loss in their own way, and then that loss brings them together to form like a new community, and that's
Yeah.
kind of like I think again the best parts of the movie are when the characters are exploring these relationships and um, I think if the movie had maybe focused on that, we're going back into the negative, but
Yeah.
like I think, and the movie does do that. Like there's a scene where they're all kind of drunk and hanging out. I think if it had maybe strayed a little less from rhetoric and theorizing, if they had actually just bonded, I think that would have been really interesting. I also noticed that the movie is set during Christmas, and it's only implied through set design with Christmas trees and Christmas lights.
There is
What
one
if they
line where
had
they say Merry Christmas as well. But
Oh,
yeah.
they do? Oh, I missed that. I
Yeah.
missed that the second time, I think. I think, like, yeah, I guess if, they're all spending time away from their families
Yeah.
to do this thing, I think there's so much to explore there.
To
And,
do
like,
this thing, what that in their eyes is to save their families as well.
yeah. And,
Yeah.
like the idea that what's bringing them together is, like, the destruction of the world. Like, their,
Yeah.
their union is built upon suffering, their own
Yeah.
suffering and the suffering of the world. Like, these are really, like, thematically rich ideas. Too bad that they weren't really there, but
I
back to
think that they
positives.
are. I
Oh,
think
wait,
like to not be too negative. I think those ideas are there. I think that
yeah.
they're just little folds that could have been just pulled out even more. But yeah,
Mhm.
I really really appreciate that about this movie, and I think it is there, and I think it's good.
Yeah. Back to positives though. You
Yeah.
mentioned editing a little bit. I really did
Yeah.
like the editing of this movie. I think the timing of the flashbacks, like you said, are great. Another one I remembered was when Michael blows up and then they cut to Michael's flashback.
Yeah.
I thought he died. I thought he was
Yeah.
dead the first time, and like this was his life. Like in him, I agree that he shouldn't have died, and it's good that he didn't. But in a darker movie, I like the kind of like Tarantino esque move of having this character only in the first act and maybe the first half of the second. They die. We flash back to why they were there, and then they are dead for the rest of the movie. That is just like structurally, I really like that. Again, it's okay that he lived in
Yeah.
this particular
Yeah.
instance, but I think also the lead up to that cut is very strong. The tension of that scene of him packing the blasting caps or whatever. I
Yeah.
think, and same with the scene where the ratchet breaks. I think
Yeah.
all those scenes are just
Yeah.
like very
The
well
use
cut together.
I think the use of inserts in this movie is like very expertly
Yes.
done. Like I think
Yeah.
like and I think particularly I really love how, and then when the pipeline is about to blow up, they start to use inserts, but a different type of shot. They have like these crash zooms, and it's like it's the
Yeah.
same. No, I really loved it though because it was like it's building on the language that already exists in the movie, where it's like we're going to use all these inserts and all these details to build the tension, but this is the most tense moment and this is it. So we're gonna add another wrinkle onto that, like we're gonna add another technique, and I thought that was great.
Yeah. I think the cinematography generally is very, very strong in this movie. I don't think I had a single point where I was like, this is a bad shot.
Yeah,
We kind of talked about the grain already and how that's just lovely. I guess I can talk about the shots that are like ingrained in my brain. They're so good.
yeah.
Um, there's like two or three wide shots. I have three, I think, that are just like really well composed and also like I think also speak to something greater.
Yes.
Like they have thematic resonance. So we can talk about the ones I've pulled out, and if you have any, you can discuss it as well. Probably the most thematically rich one is Sochi's flashback when she's smoking and the
When the
refineries in
factory
the
is above
background.
them, yeah.
Oh my god, what an amazing shot! And like that just like truly speaks to what the film is talking about. I really really admire that shot.
Yeah, I like they're grieving and there's this like oppressive thing that is literally above them and forcing them into the lower half of the frame. Like yeah, that's great. And then they're also like I think in general like the wides in this movie are excellently composed but also just very important. Like the idea of being in these rather empty and expansive landscapes, whether we're in the like deserts of Texas or also like the plains of North Dakota, in as is the case with Michael's flashback. I think like being out in the world and like in nature and seeing like the expanse, it puts into perspective like how much there is to lose. Like
Yes.
we're seeing the expansiveness of the world here and like all of this is going to be gone. Like and like that's a really important detail. Like this movie, it's great that they're very situated within the world, and so again like the use of deep focus, which is commonly employed in this, is great. That like they are standing in a landscape and we see that landscape extend all the way back. They are right here and they are walking on the earth as the earth is on the precipice of imminent destruction. Like that's really important. There are a lot of great shots where it's should be like these nice peaceful um like landscapes that are punctuated by a factory or a silo or some
Yeah.
kind of refinery. Like that's really important. There's a particular shot of during Michael's flashback where the sun is behind him in the snow
Yeah,
and he's
that
in
was
the
one of them.
snow, and that is a gorgeous shot. That is
It's
so
a
well done.
beautiful shot, and like you said, it's ruined by. And okay, let me clarify.
I know
Like
what you mean. Yeah.
the beautiful landscape is ruined by this giant factory that is blocking out the sun. It doesn't ruin the composition. The composition, the shot is beautiful, and the factory is
Yeah.
part of that. But I mean that like the beauty of the natural landscape is ruined by this ugly thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's interesting, yeah, like him doing this test and the thing in the background, and I think a lot of his like I was also thinking of one shot where it's panning and it's just like an endless
Yeah.
factory refinery in his town in the cold, and
Yeah.
it's like it's showing like the expansiveness, like it feels like it's never ending, for what should have been like a lovely snowy landscape.
Yeah.
um, Another shot I really like is another wide where they're at the fireside and the sunset is in the background and it's cloudy, and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just like it almost looks like it's like day for night or something, like an older film technique, but
Yeah.
it's
It
I
looks like an old like Spielberg film. Like it looks like
yeah,
yeah.
it's just it's so colorful, like the
Yeah.
blue of the night and the sun setting, and but the fireside is very lit up, and I think maybe like a car headlight is on them, so like they're like in orange. Oh,
Yeah.
it's just really great.
Yeah.
And I think their night scenes, they do some more kind of expressive lighting. So like there's the shot of Sochi at night smoking, and it's like she's just bathed in blue light.
Oh yeah, that's gorgeous. Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Kind of like another, like this is one of, like, night scenes are always a hot topic for cinematography and like how they should be handled. And I think this is one of the films that has kind of inspired me, like this is a nice way to light night scenes.
It helps that they've shot on film too, which I think like
True. That is true.
There's a number of things happen. One, like the blacks within the frame become, especially on the type of film they're using, I believe, like becomes very black, and you can get this nice contrast. And that, in my opinion, there's just something about like when you're crushing your blacks on digital, it just looks like bad. Like it doesn't look the same as if something is completely underexposed on film, which I think if you light it well can look great if there are underexposed aspects on film. Like there's the one shot, I'm forgetting who it is, I think it's Sochi, that it's just she's going and sitting in her dorm room maybe, and it's the frame is almost completely black, but there's light coming in from her window that is just lighting up like part of her face, and it's great. Actually, it reminds me of The Wire. The Wire does that all the time actually, where it's another show that's shot on film, and like they play with the idea of just completely dropped out underexposed aspects of the frame. And I don't think that works as well on digital. Like I think you can get that same effect, but you have to be very conscious about it. Like I think Moonlight is a movie that does that really well. Moonlight does a good job of like really good contrast in images.
Yeah, they do some interesting things with night scenes.
And that's on digital. And so it's not like you can't do it, but I think that like the choice of shooting on film also begs for you can't do this thing where you just have like no real key light or no sort of motivating light. Like you have to have like a light, and that's why like fake moonlight is so prevalent in like older movies that are all shot on film, where it's like you have to do it. You can't do this like just grainy, muddy, there's no light outside, so we're not going to have light. Whereas like, you kind of can do it with film. Yeah. Like you kind of can just have like a dim light on film and just like have that like. And so yeah, I agree, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I always end my sentences that way. I have like a long I ramble for like 2 minutes and then just be like, yeah it's good.
Yeah. Last thing I have to talk about is the score. I think the score is something I noticed the first time and as well as the second time. I called it kind of like Hans Zimmer-y in a way. It's like very like synthy and futuristic, and this time I noticed there's like metal like creaking in the score, and I think it does so much to like for the tension and for the tone. Really, I think it really kind of like the sinister nature of like this modern world, I guess, perhaps is a way to put it. I think it does a lot for the movie, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I'd add is that I just think it's placed really well too, to like ameliorate and improve upon like ameliorate isn't the right word, but to like really like drive home like the feelings that are most important of a scene. So
that's it for me. I mean I feel like I've said all I can about this movie.
Yeah, I think that's also all I got to say.
Cool. I think we have a segment.
We sure do. So this feels like this is a funny segment for this movie. The title of the movie is Predator versus the title of the movie. The title of the podcast is Predator versus movies. And so we've done the movie part. Now it's time to get into the Predator. We asked the question: would this movie be better if the Predator from the movie Predator was in it? No. It would clearly not be.
I can't even think of where.
Yeah,
on
this
Twitter.
Is one that. Yeah, on Twitter. Yeah, sure. Yeah, when they're scrolling through Twitter, they see the Predator or something. Sure.
Yeah,
that's than that, like
it would have to be like one of those cop-out answers, because it's just set in the real world, so like there's no realistic reason he would be anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun. Well, I have a segment. Usually Peter does this, but it's my turn. We have a segment called Predator's Picks. Basically, we're going to tell you what we've been watching, listening to, reading, etc. What kind of media we've been consuming, and what we think of it. So, Aiden, why don't we hear from you first?
Yeah, I haven't had too much time to watch stuff over the past week, but I did watch one movie, and mostly only watched it because it was assigned for a class, and
Right.
that is why I made an effort to schedule it in. Um, but yeah, I watched The Truman Show, which is a movie that I expected to not like very much, just based off the premise. I thought it was gonna be maybe a little preachy. I think that it's used to explore. It's used in a similar way that like 1984 is used, where it's like it's just like
Yeah.
this kind of paranoia conspiratorial thing. Like people use it as like this kind of like we're living in a surveillance state, whatever. Like I don't know. People, it
Yeah.
just I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just kind of a silly. But I thought this movie was great. I actually think that it's almost perfect. I loved this movie. And I think that the only part that there's a part of the movie that over explains itself, that like just to give a bit of context for people that don't know, it's a movie about like a show. There's a character, Truman, has had this whole show being broadcasted about him, in which he lives in this dome, but he doesn't know he lives in a dome, and it's like modeled to be his hometown, and everyone he interacts with is an actor, and it's like all scripted, but he doesn't know that, and so like, fuck, how did I start that sentence? What was I gonna say?
It's the ultimate blend of reality and scripted television because the
Yeah.
main character. It's kind of like that juror show. Have you heard of this show called Jury Duty? Quick
No.
tangent. There's a show where there's a panel of like a jury panel of 12 or so people. 11 of them are actors and one is a real guy, and they set up this fake case, and all of the actors are being zany, and one of them is James Marsden. And they're just getting the genuine reactions of the one guy who isn't an actor. And there's one clip that I saw that was so funny where James Marsden is reading a script, like I guess they're on break or something, and they're in the courtroom, and he's reading his script, and he goes, sorry, whew, sorry, I just read something really scary in here. Anyways,
That's
you
funny.
can keep talking about the movie you watched.
But yeah, there's just a segment of the movie where it over explains certain aspects of the show, and it over explains like, and I think it's really, I was like, no, don't do that, because the movie does such a good job of like, particularly there's a thing with his dad, like we find out early on that his dad died, and I don't want to spoil why that's important, but I think it's like, it's really like how that factors into why he has never left the town is so well done, and it's so well written and directed, and then they just explain it later in the movie. They just straight out say it, and it's like, I didn't need you to do that. You very well established, like expertly established what was going on here. But other than that, I thought this movie was like impeccably directed. Like there are so many like just like so like, for example, when Truman is like first coming wise to the idea that his everything is fake, and that his reality isn't real, he goes through the revolving doors that he goes through every day to get to work, and instead of going through like we've seen him, because what we've seen him do before this is he lets everyone go by first, and then he just goes through and it's normal. He spins around and he spins around, and we have this one shot that's like affixed to the door in front of him, so we're just looking at his face as he just goes around and around, and instead of going in the building, he goes out. And like that's great directing. Like that is so well done.
Yeah.
Like that's such a good way to explain what is happening and show what is happening within him. I think this movie like does a great job of talking about like the nature of like culture and dominant culture and hegemony versus like the human ability to take and reconstruct and renegotiate the narratives that are imposed on us. Like I think that like this is it's a great movie. Like there's a lot going on here. I
Yeah.
think this is an incredible movie. So I would very much recommend this to anyone.
Cool. Yeah, I saw that movie a long time ago. I told you this off air, but I was probably too young to appreciate it. So that's one of the movies that while having seen it, I need to rewatch it to like fully appreciate it. But I've seen a couple things. I've had some more free time, but not like a whole lot. So I've caught up finally on Succession and Barry. The final episodes of both of those shows aired tonight. Very
Nice.
excited, despite them being exceptionally bleak, and just like every episode is like both of them like the lead characters are just being the worst versions of themselves possible, just like terrible people. I
Yeah.
The last episode of Succession ends with Hugo, like Hugo's like the one of the PR guys, but he's like, I don't know, like in his 50s, maybe 60s, and Kendall, like Jeremy Strong, is
Yeah.
like you can have a seat at the table, Hugo, or if you help me, you won't be at the table. It'll just be me. I will be like on my own, whatever. But you'll have the scraps, and the scraps will be worth millions. So are you gonna be my dog? Like he says that, and Hugo's like woof woof. And that's the final line of the episode. I love, like Succession is just like I love their writing, and then
Yeah.
Barry is just like it's so different, and it truly is like someone else said that it was like Lynchian, and every episode that's just getting proven more and more correct. Just the strangest things are happening in that show, and I'm gonna be very sad to see them go, but can't recommend those enough. I've also been watching a show, another Bill Hader show, called Documentary Now. And I'm not like a huge doc person, but I did take a doc class with Aidan actually
You
this
did.
past year.
Yeah.
And watching this show is just so funny based on like the small amount of knowledge I have about famous documentaries, because each episode is mimicking a famous documentary and doing like a parody version of it.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like it's true parody of something that I think most people wouldn't care to do parody of, because so many people would not care about documentaries, and they're so funny. So the first episode is a parody of I think it's called Grey Gardens. Have you heard of this one?
No.
So it's about the I think it's the Onassis, like the Jackie Kennedy, like her family, some of her relatives, and it's just like a mother and a daughter who live in like seclusion in this like it is like a manor, but it's in total disrepair, and so they're kind of like fading out, like they're literally like fading away. The cats and animals have overrun the house, but like in this version it's Bill Hader and Fred Armisen in drag, and like they're the main characters of every episode. It's their show, and they're just like they make it into something like more like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, almost like these are maybe that's not right, but like these are characters like who are totally crazy, and like
Yeah.
it's not gonna end well. And like it's like the characters are supposed to be like kind of vain, or like Bill Hader's the younger one, and he's supposed to be a vain character, and she wears like sweatpants on her head as like, oh, do you like fashion? And she's like, these are sweatpants, by the way. And then every scene she's in, she's wearing something different on her head, and it's always something that's not supposed to be there, like a towel or like a shirt. So it's like lots of visual gags like that. The third episode got into some like dicey territory for me. This is not that old of a show, but it's not like current. And they did. Do you remember the documentary about the Inuit person from the 20s?
Yeah.
So they do a parody of that, which I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, deep cut. First of all, like that is maybe not a deep cut, but like really go into the trenches of history.
Sure.
And just like that one, I was like, I don't know. It's hard to watch, kind of with kind of like the really PC mindset that we kind of adopted nowadays. So the biggest issue, so like Bill Hader's character, he's playing like like an older version of a character who was there during the film. It's interesting how they do it. It's not a parody of the 20s film. It's like a looking back at the 20s film from,
Oh,
let's
okay.
say, like the 80s. So it's like two in one. And so Bill
Yeah.
Hader's character is very old in what is the present of the movie. But he he's only using the E term for the Inuit
yeah,
people.
yeah.
And so that I was like, that's not great. But it was more the fact that Fred Armisen is playing the Inuit person, and I was like, of course, because like Fred Armisen always does this, where he's like racially ambiguous enough that he can play anything, or so he believes, and this is getting to a point where I'm like, red face. I'm like, I don't know if you should be doing that one specifically. That just felt a little too far for me. But I mean, other than that, unfortunately, and I'm sure this is not going to be the last time he's doing a racially ambiguous caricature.
Yeah.
But like, I think beyond the fact that he's playing that character, no, he does also speak the language. I really hope that they're actually speaking the language and it's not made up. I don't know about that. I'm not gonna look into that. But anyways, I think the show in concept is very funny. So I sort of recommend that. Just be wary when you watch things. Anyways, I also watched two movies. I watched Blackberry, which is a Canadian film starring Jay Baruchel and Glenn Howerton. Great movie. It's probably like a 4 for me. I think 4 stars. Some people give it lower, and I think that's fair. But really, just like of this trend of doing product or company based movies, this one feels just so different because it's about like a massive failure that was like, it was a huge, like Blackberries were huge when they were huge, and then like are gone. They're like the film at the end is like they used to be at their height, they were like 45% saturation of the cell phone market. Now they are at 0% because they are gone. They are dead. And like that is utterly like so fascinating. The film style, I did listen to a podcast before I watched it, and it's actually what the interview I heard was what inspired me to watch that over Master Gardener, which turned out to be a bad choice because Master Gardener has left theaters since then, and Blackberry has not. But live and let learn, I guess. And they talked about how they filmed it in such a way that was like evoking documentary style. So they used super long lenses because they wanted to like evoke like as if there was a documentary crew the whole time, and they could never really get close to them. And so the lenses keep getting longer because in the world of the movie, as they get more famous, they would get less and less access. I just find that super fascinating. And Glenn Howerton puts in a great performance as a really scary guy. He just goes full Dennis psycho mode from It's Always Sunny, just like the whole time. The director is also in the movie as one of the main characters, as like the comic relief. Really nails it. Like I was like, that's like he pulls it off. So I really like that. Really like Blackberry, and I think I was gonna recommend to Peter when he was here, but I think both you and Peter would like that movie for different reasons.
Nice.
And then finally, in anticipation of Across the Spider-Verse releasing next week, I rewatched Into the Spider-Verse. I always forget that it's called Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but it is in fact called that. That is the best Spider-Man movie there is.
It's a good one. Yeah.
Possibly a perfect movie. I need to think on it a little bit. I think maybe the problem I'm having right now is trying to connect Kingpin's story to what Miles is experiencing, and I think there is a bit of a connection in that he's Kingpin has experienced loss, and Miles at one point does as well, but that's kind of irrelevant to my recommendation. Truly a phenomenal movie, very very funny. I knew I had to rewatch it, and I was kind of dreading it. I was like, I don't want to rewatch this. I've seen it twice already, and it's yeah, it's funny, but it's like a kids movie. Like within seconds of the movie starting, I was like, I'm in. You sold
Oh
me.
yeah.
I'm back in. It's directed like phenomenally. There's some
'Cause
crazy shots in that movie.
I feel the same kind of dread right now where I'm like, I know I like that movie. I know I saw it and I really liked it, but I have the same kind of feeling where it's like, I don't want to rewatch that right now.
When
Yeah.
you start it, you're like, you remember why you love it. I
Yeah.
found it very powerful, and I mean, it's been a while since I watched it, which is good for the rewatch. But just so super funny and in kind of like a unique way. And I realized like there's just some like truly unique scenes in that movie that you just can't get anywhere else. Like truly inspired scenes. So like when Peter B. Parker is like knocked out and Miles is like dragging along his kind of unconscious body
Yeah.
from the train. Like, how do they think
Yeah.
of that?
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
a
thing?
great
Like that's
idea.
crazy. That's crazy. And just like this, unlike most Spider-Man movies where the theme is always the same, with great power comes great responsibility, you know. This is one where it's like, no, he's living up to like the shadow of this great figure, and there's like so many that are just like him, and yet he feels like he needs to find his place in the world. And like that great graffiti he does at the beginning of like, no expectations, I don't know who I am, great expectations is like a novel he's supposed to do a book report on. And I was just like, wow, this is really strong. And Peter B. Parker being like depressed Spider-Man, love it. It was great movie. Can't wait for the sequel. Next week, we're gonna do that. Obviously, we're gonna do Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Peter can make it out for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, until next time, check us out on @PredatorVMovies on Twitter and Instagram. If you like my thoughts on movies, I leave reviews on Letterboxd @_AlexGordon_.
You could also sorry, I feel like you say more there usually.
Sometimes I do, but I think I
Okay.
I rephrased it this time, so I already kind of covered.
That's
what
why
I
it's
usually say.
confusing. Okay, yeah. I also leave reviews sometimes on Letterboxd. I am 810 Sunny. That's 810 SONNY. My name is Wombo. I also leave reviews sometimes. I repeated that. Yeah.
Yep. Peter, do you have anything to plug? Oh no, he's not.
No,
here,
he doesn't.
which
He doesn't have
means-
anything to plug. So the contract is still valid. Peter did not have anything to plug, so you guys have to rate our podcast on whatever platform you listen to it on.
Rate the podcast. Give us a star review. It has to be 5. Give us a like. Leave a comment. Say like literally anything. If you like the show, like reach out to us. We'll maybe interact with you. We'll probably will.
We almost
DM
certainly will.
us. DM us. No, don't DM us. That's the one thing.
DM
Don't
us,
DM us.
Venmo us.
No. Leave a
Look
review.
us
tell
up on
what you
Google
think.
Maps as best you can. Try to
Don't
find where we
dox
live.
us. Don't dox us. But yeah, until next time, I'm Alex.
I'm Aidan. No, Peter.
No, Peter. And this was Predator versus Movies. See you next week. Pew, 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 pew.
Pew, pew, pew.